So we're going to study Mitzvah Hashem, the Mishnah now on Pei Hey Amud Beis. And you may recall that at the beginning of this parak, Eluheina Nechnokim, the Mishnah had listed certain averos for which you're chayav chenek. And now the Mishnah wants to set up certain conditions that have to be met in order to have a chiyuv for these averos. So we'll start with Makeh Aviv Ve'imo, because that's listed first in the Mishnah. Makeh Aviv Ve'imo Eino Chayav Ad Sheyaseh Bahen Chabura. In other words, you must remove the dam from father or mother in order for that to constitute a Chabura, and then and only then are you going to be Chayav. And Zeh Chomer B'Mekalel Mi B'Makeh, She'Mekalel Yachar Misa Chayav Ve'Makel Yachar Misa Pot. So once the father's gone, even if he would, let's say, do some sort of a terrible thing to his father's body, but that's not called a chabura. Chabura means to take out the dam that's alive. However, as far as Mekalel is concerned, we're going to see, based on a drasha, that if he's Mekalel's parents, one of his parents after their death, he's going to be Chayav. Torah Rabbanu, we learned in a brayso. Now the pasuk says in Vayikra Chaf in Parshas Kedosh, it says Aviv ve'imo kilel, and these words are superfluous. It already says at the beginning of the pasuk, Ki ish asher yikalel es aviv es imo mos yumos. If he curses his father or his mother, he's going to die. And so why it has to repeat itself, Aviv ve'imo kilel? And the answer is that this is a ribui. The Torah is extending the scope of the chiyuv for Makal of Ve'imo, and it's going to apply in a new category, Li'achar Misa. So the brayso now says, wait a minute, why do you need a special ribui for Makal Achar Misa? Is there some havamina that would compel us to assume that Mekalel is only chayav during the lifetime of the parents? And there must be some svara to exempt a Mekalel Yachar Misa. Because otherwise, why did the Torah have to add this Aviv Ve'imo Kilel to teach me that you're chayav for Li'achar Misa? What was the compelling svara to say that you'd be potter Li'achar Misa? So the answer is the Hekesh Ta'aka Yachol hold the chayav b'Makeh. The Torah says a Makeh Aviv is chayav. The chayav b'Mekalel and Mekalel Aviv is chayav. Is I would equate the two, because the Torah says Makeh Nefesh, and after the death of a person, if he does a chabura, and even if he removes the dam from the dead body, that's not called Makeh Nefesh. Is Afa Mekalel, Eino Chayav El Mechayim. But after death, that's not called Mekalel, by virtue of this hekesh between Hakah and Klal, the Od, and furthermore, Kavach Chomer. Uma Makeh she'asa bo shelo b'yamcha ki b'yamcha. In the case of Makeh Aviv, the Torah doesn't differentiate between Osa Ma'isa Amcha or Eino Osa Ma'isa Amcha, means he's a Rasha. And Makeh Aviv is chayav even if his father is a Rasha. And we'll see exactly how we know this in a minute. And nevertheless, here's the Kavach Chomer. The Torah is more machmir in Makeh than it is in Mekalel, because Mekalel is only chayav if he's osa ma'isa amcha, whereas Makeh is chayav even if he's eno osa ma'isa amcha. So now that we've established that Makeh is more chomer than Mekalel, and yet Makeh is not chayav Li'achar Misa, is how much more so in the case of Mekalel, he's not, which is Kal, he's not going to be chayiv lechem misa. Is makal shelo asabo shelo bi'amcha ki bi'amcha. No, it's you're only chayiv for makal your father if he's osa ma'isa amcha, but not if he's a rasha. Is eino din. It goes without saying shelo chayiv bo lechem misa that the kulas that apply to makeh will ipso facto apply to makal. And what is the kula that applies to makeh? The fact that he's not chayev. I'm sorry. What is the kula that applies to makalel? I meant to say the fact that he's not chayev for klala in a case of eno osa maisa am. No. I'm sorry. I got this. The chumrah. Right, I got it right the first time. Sometimes you correct yourself, and then there's a chumrah in makeh aviv that doesn't apply to makal aviv. Makeh aviv applies whether or not his father is an upstanding, observant Jew or he's not. He's a Russian, and yet makeh is not chayiv le'achar misa. In the case of Makalel, you're only chayav if he's osa ma'isa amcha. So we see that Makalel is kal vis-a-vis Makeh, and yet Makeh is potter if it's the achar misa. So certainly Makal should be potter achar misa, and that's why Talmud Lomar Oviv ve'imo kilel, those extra 3 words in the pasuk that tells me that even liachar misa, he's chayav as makal. So it comes out that makeh has a chumrah that doesn't exist in makal. Makal has a chumrah that doesn't exist in makeh. Makeh has both a chumrah and a kula. Makeh has a chumrah that you chayav even for eno osa ma'isa, but as a kula that you're not chayav lachar misa. And makalel has a kula that you're only chayav for osa ma'isa, but a chumrah that you chayav even lachar misa. So I'm just going to read you a note here. He says that in Makal it says v'nasi bi'amcha lo sa'ar, and that teaches me that he's only chayav for Makalel if it's osa ma'isa amcha. You see, I have an explanation for this. It might sound like Taimi de Kra, but at least it's a mnemonic device to remember it. Makalel is something that's more spiritual, so to speak. It's not physical. And even if it's liachar misa, on a spiritual level, your father is still your father, your mother is still your mother. Nothing changed as far as that's because the makalel applies even liachar misa. But makeh is totally physical. And therefore it only applies to a father that's alive, not after death. But at the same time, what we're saying is that even if his father's not osa maisa amcha, so from a spiritual perspective, maybe, like Klola, for example, would not register. But Hakah is physical. And since Hakah is physical, it's irrelevant whether the father is osa maisa amcha or not. Now, we have a hekesh between makeh aviv and makalel aviv. And yet this brisa establishes these differences between the two. So what happened to the hekesh that equates the two? Apparently this brisa does not accept that hekesh for some reason. Maybe because the psukim are not one near the other. You have the pasuk of Aviv v'imo kilel in Vayikra Perek Chaf. So wait a minute. So make of the imamos yumos, that's in Shmos Chaf Aleph. And of the Mokilel is in Vayikra Chaf. So this Brisa doesn't accept that Hekish. So that means that even though Makalel Makalel Aviv does not apply in the case of Eino Osa Maisa Amcha, but Make Aviv will apply. And even though Makalel Aviv applies even Lachar Misa, because it says Aviv the Imo Kilel, the extra three words, but nevertheless, there's no such thing as a Chiyuv Make Aviv of Chovel and Asiyas Chabura liachar Misas Aviv. So Gemara says, Hanicha, this drasha makes sense lefi Rabbi Yonasan. The miyato lekra. Right, the pasuk Aviv v'imo kilel. Right, we said that the pasuk says in Vayikra Chaf ki ish isha sheyikal es aviv es imo mos yumos, and therefore we said that aviv the imo kilel is superfluous. But Rabbi Yonan says, and that's exactly what Rabbi Yonan said. Aval Rav Yoshia, he's going to say that we need those three psukim, those three words aviv the imo kilel is Michael Amema. How do we know, according to Rav Oshia, that Makal Aviv liachar Misa is Chayav? Now, it sounds like the Gemara is asking a kasha Rav Oshia from our Mishnah that says that Makal liachar Misa is Chayav. Rav Oshia, though, I think is a Tana. I'm not sure if you could ask a kasha from a Mishnah on a Tana. Let's see, maybe we'll find an answer to that question as we go along. This Sanya we learned in a Brisa, as far as Mekalel, it says ish, ish. Matamid lomer ish, ish. That's a question that crossed my mind. L'rabos bas. What does it say? Bas vitumtum? It says bas. Oh, bas tumtum viadrogenes. So I guess the extra ish is tell you, even someone who has only a little bit of ish is considered an ish and included in the lav of makala. I see. In other words, there was a havamina that a bas who curses her father or mother would not be chayav. But the extra word ish tells me that even a bas is included, and even a tumtum, where at least initially we don't know if it's a male or a female. And then we have androgynous. So androgynous has both zachrus and nakrus. So it's so interesting that we, on Marba, these three categories from the extra word ish. Maybe it works like this. That in Tumtu, we don't know if it's a male or a female, but Mat is not, because we already were Marba a female. And in the case of androgynous, you have also Zachrus and Nachrus, but Mimonavshach, whether it's the Zachrus Shabo or the Nachrus Shabo, they're both Chayav. In the case of Makala, because the extra word ish. Now the Brisa continues and asks whether or not he's only chayav if he's makal both his father and his mother. Eli ella aviv v'imo, aviv shalo imo, imo shalo aviv minayim. How do we know he's chayav misa for even lola of one of them? Talmud lomar aviv v'imo kilel. So what is aviv v'imo kilel? Because I would have said aviv v'imo kilel means both. He was makal both of them. Aviv kilo, imo kilo, divrei Rabbi Oshia. So again, we're focused on these three words, which we understand to be superfluous. It says aviv ve'imo kila. Why did the Torah add these three words? Rabbi Oshia is the first Tana in this Brisa, and he's saying that from aviv ve'imo kila, we're going to derive the conclusion that Yechai for being makal aviv without imo, or imo without aviv. Exactly how he sees it in the pasuk, I do not know. Unless maybe the vav is a vav hamachalik. Maybe that's what he means. Oh, he says here in the footnote, it's the smichus of klololi of. Right, it says Asher Yikalu es Aviv, and then it says Aviv v'imo kilel. So we're going to take the word Aviv and we're going to attach it to Asher Kilel es Aviv. I think it's better if we see this inside. So let's open up to Vayikra Chaf. 1 second, Vayikra Chaf. It says, Ki ish asher yikalel es aviv es imo mos yumos. And then it says, aviv ve'imo kilel domov bo.
Right, Bruce, on the art scroll note.
Yeah, what does he say?
The art scroll note on this says, had the Torah stated only one of the phrases and joined his father and his mother with the conjunction of vav, we would have translated the vav as and would have interpreted the verse to mean that the child must curse his father and mother together in order to be liable.
Right, so that I understand. So now it says Aviv ve'imo kilel. So how does that teach you that he's chayav for one or the other? So here in my note it says because of the smichus. Let's see if we can figure out what the smichus means here. I think it works like this. I'm not sure. It says the following. At the beginning of the pasuk, ish, leave that out for a minute. Asher yikalel es aviv. So notice there's a smichus here between the word klola, yikalel, and aviv. Now look at the end of the pasuk. it says aviv v'imo kilel. So now the word kilel is samach to imo. So we have one kilel that's samach to aviv, and the extra kilel at the end of the pasuk is samach le'imo. So the first part of the pasuk is telling me that there's a chiyuv of klola on aviv, and the second part of the pasuk is coming to tell you there's a chiyuv kilo al imo. And the reason why we do that is because of smichos. We have the first klola, which is samach to aviv. We have the second, which is samach to imo. And we're saying that he's chayav for one of two klolos, either the klola that's samach li aviv or the klola that's samach li imo. Each one is a separate machayev. Did that make any sense? You want me to? Should I say that over again? It's clear. Shake your head if it's clear. Okay. Do you have, what number, Reuven, I'm just curious, what number footnote did you just read to me?
Uh, 17.
10.
17 in art scroll. Right.
So take a look at number 12. I don't have the art scroll, but I have a Schottenstein, which is very similar. Do you have a footnote number 12 there?
Footnote 12 says that is the Torah imposed a punishment only for cursing a law by parent, not cursing a sinful one.
So maybe by you it's number 11.
I don't think that's connected.
Maybe it's number 11. Then I don't know. Anyway, I think that what I just said to you is correct. All right. So again, the bottom line is that Rav Oshia needs a separate ribui of aviv ve'imo kilel to teach you that when you makal your father or your mother separately, you're chayav. So therefore, l'chora, we don't have a redundancy in aviv ve'imo kilel to teach me that you're chayav for klola even liachar misa. Rabbi Yonasan Omar, he understands that when it says aviv ve'imo, it means he cursed both of them. Mashma shneim ke'echad. But umashma shekol echad v'echad b'fnei atzma. So now I think we're getting into the laws of Kilayim. What does it say in Kilayim? It says, Lo tachrosh b'shor u'b'chamor yachtov. So the Torah needed the word yachtov to teach me that he's only chayav for charisha with both the shor and the chamor together. Had it not said the word yachtov, we would have assumed that the Torah prohibits charisha even with shor alone or with chamor alone. So Rabbi Yonasan says this is a klal, that whenever the Torah writes two details and it combines them with a vav, then we have everyone to assume that the din is chal on each one on its own. So the yachtov is the exception to the rule. The rule is kol echad v'echad levad. bifnei atzma. So therefore, when it says Asher Yikalas Oves Imo, we already know that it means Yechai for each klola because it doesn't say Yachta. So according to Rabbi Yonasan, the end of the pasuk of Imo Kilel is superfluous. And we're going to use those words to teach us that he's chayav even liachar misa for klol. But now we're stuck with Rav Oshia because he uses the extra words of Imo Kilel to teach me that Yechaya for each one independent separately. Is Minole, how does he know that Makal Oviv Liachar Misa is Chaya? And the Gemara answers Nafkale, he derives it from a different pasuk. Mi Umakal Oviv Imo Mos Yumos. That's pasuk in Parshas Bo. Now, why is that pasuk redundant? Right? Because we were looking at the parsha in Vayikra, Parshas Kedoshim. Now we have a parsha in Shmos, which seems to reiterate what we have here in Kedoshim. Makal Aviv Mos Yumas. So the extra drush is going to teach me that Yechayev for Klola even liachar misa. The Idach. What about Rabbi Yonasan? Right, he derives Klola liachar misa from Aviv v'imo Kilel. And the Gemara answers, Hahumi boile lerabos bas tumtum v'androgynous. So the pasuk in Shmos, which according to Rabbi Yoshia is machadish that Yechayev even after Misa for Klolos Avimo, according to Rabbi Yonasan, what do we do with that extra pasuk in Shmos? And the Gemara answers that that's the source for Bas, Tumtus, and Androgynous. I typically mi ish, right? The Brisa that we quoted earlier derives this conclusion from ish, and the answer is Dibra Torah Kolosh B'nei Adam. So Rabbi Yonasan holds that the Psukei Torah are written in the language that we usually speak. So when it says ish, that's not for a ribui or a drasha. That's Dibra Torah Koloshim B'nei Adam. Okay, then. So this is where we'll stop for today, and I'll wish you a great, great Shabbos. Okay, then. Now, it could be that Monday I might not be able to give the 9:30 and the 10:45 shiurim. I'll let you know. I mean, nothing is set in stone. It depends on an answer that I'm going to get, or two different answers from elsewhere. All right. Anyway, have a great, great Shabbos. Thank you so much.